In 2005, two brothers hit the road to chase demons and fight monsters. You know, like you do. After 15 years, they made television history and built a community of dedicated and lasting fans.
Sure did.
I'm Rob Benedict, and I played God, a.k.a. Chuck Shirley.
Yeah, you are, and yeah, you did. And I'm Richard Spade Jr., and I played the Archangel Gabriel, a.k.a. the Trickster, a.k.a. Loki. I also had the privilege of directing a bunch of episodes of the show.
Have a few more AKAs, why don't you? Jeez.
A.k.a. you're a jerk.
Though we've been involved with the series for years and multiple seasons, we never sat down and watched the entire show.
Oh, that's not true anymore. Now we're deep into it. We are going episode by episode and diving in with the folks who made it to bring you an insider's point of view and some great behind-the-scenes stories from the writers, producers, crew, and actors. And you're getting our pure, honest, unfettered reviews.
And along the road, let me tell you, we're becoming fans.
Buddy, we are super fans.
We've heard you saying it for years, and we finally get what all the excitement's about. This show holds up after all this time and deserves to be watched and rewatched.
We will be hitting on some spoilers, so consider yourself warned. And if you have any angry emails you want to send, please direct them to Babo.
Thank you for joining our journey and listening to Supernatural Then and Now. Hey everybody, I'm Rob Benedict.
And I'm Richard Spade Jr.
And we're talking about Supernatural Season 4, Episode 16, On the Head of a Pin.
No, we're not talking about it on the head of a pen. We're talking about it on Zoom.
Yeah, oh, jeez. Hey, Rich.
What?
Did you know that fans can now get a Rob's Notes notebook at spnthenandnow.com?
You mean a Rob's Dumb Notes notebook?
That's right. It's you get your own notebook to write down your own dumb notes. And the design of the notebook is really funny. It's as if it's my notebook that Richard stole and he writes his own graffiti all over it. It's good stuff.
Basically, it's like I took Rob's dumb notebook and made it better.
That's right. No actual notebooks were injured in the making of this notebook.
I wish there was other merch.
Well, there is other merch. There's stickers, pins.
Ow.
Is that like bowling pins? Oh, no, that's like pin that you stick on your
shirt. Yes, I'm pretty sure it's bowling pins, Rob, because that's what everybody's looking for.
Stickers, pins, bags, T-shirts.
Man, it's like they got it all.
Yeah, you can go do your shopping at spnthenandnow.com. It's almost the holidays, for goodness sake.
When this thing airs, it may be Cinco de Mayo. We have no idea.
Exactly. It's some holiday coming up.
Yeah.
All right, there's a lot going on in this episode. Are you ready?
I'm excited to hear your summary, which of course comes right off the top of your head.
That's right.
I don't have to do a lot of heavy lifting during this sequence, so I'm just going to be keeping my eyes and ears peeled for typos.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Castiel walks through a disaster scene where there are cars upside down and alarms blaring, but not a living soul in sight. He comes upon a woman in white with a wound in her side. He wishes her goodbye and leaves before the police arrive.
That's called leaving the scene, Robbie.
Leaving the scene. Sam and Dean are driving, having recently left the funeral for Pamela Barnes. Dean is tired of all their friends dying, and Sam tells him to get angry, not tired. They arrive at a motel and find Castiel and Uriel waiting for them.
Yeah, how many times have you heard that old saying? Don't get tired, get angry.
I know, right?
Yeah.
The angels tell them that 7 angels have recently been killed, and they don't know how the demons are doing it. Uriel wants Dean to interrogate a captured Alistair. At first, Dean refuses, but Uriel says they aren't asking. The angels then disappear with Dean, leaving Sam alone.
Yeah.
The 2 angels and Dean arrive at an empty warehouse where Alistair is confined in a devil's trap. Now, this is a different Alistair than the last Alistair we saw, right?
Yeah,
different
the Alistair we saw before was...
Mark Ralston.
Yeah, the guy from Shawshank Redemption.
Right. But this different actor, but still doing that same kind of speech dialect that Ralston did.
Yeah, this is Christopher Heyerdahl.
Got it. Dean still resists, and Castiel tells him he wishes there was another way. Dean tells Castiel that he won't like what walks out if he makes him do this. Dean enters the chamber with Alistair, who taunts him. Alistair tells Dean he left a part of himself in hell and brags about how much John Winchester was tortured.
Yeah, that hurts. That's his dad. They're related,
I know.
So that's gotta hurt.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Ruby has arrived at the hotel.
Why aren't I surprised?
I know. Sam tells her he's worried that Dean isn't strong enough to get the job done, but that he will be. Dean starts to torture Alistair, first injecting him with holy water.
Holy water?
Yeah. Alistair continues to taunt Dean about how the demon broke him. Meanwhile, Ruby conducts a ritual to locate Dean and also cuts her arm so that Sam can feed on her demon blood.
Oh, yeah. Feed the Sammy.
That's right. And that's when he knew. Dean continues to torture Alistair to try and get an answer on how the angels are dying. Unbeknownst to Dean, a valve on a water pipe is turning on its own. Droplets of water start dripping on the perimeter of the devil's trap. That was supposed to be just like maiden clad, this devil's trap, but still water washes chalk
I know.
away.
It's a real bummer because when you invest that kind of time and energy into a devil's trap, you expect it to have some, it's the classic, you got to wonder if it's made in America.
They must have got it at IKEA.
It feels very, very much like it was slapped together somewhere else.
A little bit of an IKEA thing.
Yeah.
They didn't have the right Allen wrench.
Classic Swedes.
Castiel has been outside the chamber listening to Alistair's screams. Anna arrives. Anna's back. Questions whether the orders Castiel and Uriel are following are really the word of God. Castiel refuses to question God's word, even though he's had doubts in the past. The torture of Alistair continues, and he reveals that Dean torturing his first soul was the first seal to be broken.
Which I hated hearing because aquatic wildlife fan, you don't want to hear about anybody or any animal getting injured. And somehow Dean torturing some guy, and some eel gets hurt.
Some seal, yeah.
Seal.
Yeah, no, I know that you're a big fan of the aquatic wildlife. But I was thinking about you when that was revealed. So they're breaking seals. Suddenly, Alistair is free because of the broken devil's trap. They fight. Dean gets knocked to smithereens. He punches the hell out of Dean, and he's knocked unconscious. Castiel arrives and goes toe-to-toe with Alistair. The demon gets the upper hand and is about to send Castiel back to heaven when suddenly Sam arrives and uses his newly found demon powers to pin the demon to the wall.
Now, I'm the only one who was sitting there thinking, is that a punishment to get sent back to heaven? It's like, and now I'm going to send you back to the waterbed store with the all-you-can-eat buffet attached.
Well,
like you're going to heaven.
Yeah, but in this,
what is that?
We need him here.
It doesn't seem like much of a threat.
Well,
yeah, but if you go back to heaven,
I know.
Why, he could just zap himself back down. That didn't seem like much of a threat. I'm just saying.
Yeah, like sending him back to his mother's womb or something.
Well, you just literally go, okay, send me back to heaven, and then poof, I'm back.
Yeah.
He didn't say, I'm sending you back to heaven, or I'm locking you.
It's a great Alistair, by the way.
Thank you very much.
So Sam shows up. He uses his power to torture Alistair, who reveals it isn't the demons killing the angels. Sam then destroys the demon. Castiel watches in disbelief. Dean gets taken to a hospital. Castiel puts some things together and suspects Uriel might be involved with freeing Alistair. Uriel admits the plan was for Alistair to escape and kill Dean. Uriel is trying to put together a rebellion against God and to free Lucifer.
What?
In a twist.
Oh, man.
The angels fight. Castiel is about to be destroyed by Uriel's blade because angels can only kill angels.
That's what we find out, that angels can only kill angels.
Right. But suddenly Anna appears and stabs Uriel with his own blade. Dean wakes up and Castiel is there with him. Castiel tells Dean that Uriel is a traitor, and Dean did indeed break the first seal. And that only Dean can stop the apocalypse now. But Dean, with eyes full of tears, tells him he doesn't believe he's strong enough.
Does the seal ever pop his head up over the hospital bed and go, thanks for breaking me? Well, what a razzle-dazzle cornucopia of craziness this episode was.
Yeah. I didn't know what I was in for at the beginning. I was like, what's going on? What's happening? It took me a minute.
I really loved this line that Hired All has, where he's like, yeah, you should talk to your plumber about those pipes. It's such a great line. That actor's so good. Robert Wisdom is so good.
Yeah.
It's like such good acting in this episode, man.
What a great episode. Robert Wisdom is so fantastic. And
Christopher Heyerdahl, so fantastic. They're both just unbelievable home run hitters in this episode. Yeah. Great acting in this episode. And dark.
And Sam and Dean have some great stuff too. Very dark. We learn a lot about...
And Genevieve doing her thing, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Julie McNiven.
Love her so much.
Yeah, man. It's just really, really crazy how good and chock full
of stuff. I mean, we're finding out that there's drama in heaven, that there's drama, there's infighting.
Yeah, trouble in paradise, as they say.
You've got a God, even this early, we're finding out that God is not all there, not always attending to his angels.
No, not always attending to the angels.
And it's the first sort of mention of bringing Lucifer back. A lot of foreshadowing happening here. Yeah, I'm going and watching it going, this is a classic episode.
It's a classic episode. So let's talk about facial hair.
All right.
Let's get to it. I think it's great. Man, it's funny. It's one of those ones where I want to, it's almost like a one you want to give a perfect score to. And at the same time, there's so much being set up in this thing that some of it feels expository, but the acting is so good.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
I'm going to give it Kenny Loggins.
Okay.
But I don't know if this is going to make sense. It's a JPEG of the Kenny Loggins. It's a picture of a picture. So it's not live Kenny Loggins. Wow, look at that majestic beard. It's a picture of a picture. And I say that because it felt like I was really invested. I found a lot of stuff out. I'm almost like I'm reading a book. But it was less for me about the emotions of sort of what some of the episodes do to me. You know what I mean? And it was more about sort of like just taking on all this information, and I'm still kind of digesting it and going, okay, so what now? Who and what? And, I don't know if that makes any sense. It's a picture. It's a picture of Kenny Loggins, not the live Kenny Loggins. No? Yeah, maybe I should do that again. I should do that again.
I didn't take any mushrooms before doing the podcast. I'm having a hard time.
All right, I'm gonna do mine again. I'll do mine again. I'll do it again.
No, this is great. I hear what you're saying, and I actually agree with you in your assessment. Your choice of beards is mildly confusing, but I get it. Let me tell you what I was going to pick, and
you tell me yours, and then I'm going to go back and edit mine based on what you said.
Well, or you can just stay with where you were, whatever. You can amend it if you want. I was going to go with the Christopher Heyerdahl, the Alistair beard.
Oh, good.
The guy's got a full beard, but it's not big like a Stapleton. But it's rock solid. Does what it's supposed to do. Looks great.
Covered with blood.
Basically, I think the acting and some of the writing is so clever and dark and interesting in this episode that it's really, really good. Especially the Dean storyline with Alistair and Uriel, Robert Wisdom.
I mean,
it's all so dense and intense, and I just loved that element of it.
Yeah.
So I'm giving it the Heyerdahl.
That's good. Man, a lot of spitting. It's a lot of spitting blood.
A lot of spitting, dude. A lot of barfing. I literally thought that. I'm like, what a awful floor cleanup. And also nice reset. All right, let's put some more organs into Heyerdahl's mouth, please.
Yeah, well,
action.
That and just the performance he gave. It's it's a lot. He gave a lot. To get
great.
there. So yeah, you get an A, home run. I grounded out to second, but it's a, do I stay with that?
I give your beard a beard. You know what I mean?
Do I stay with that? A picture of Kenny Loggins as my beard?
Why not?
I don't know, because it's kind of weird.
It's fine.
All right, well, let's get to the interview portion. We are so delighted to have this person with us.
We got a heavy hitter today.
Robert Wisdom played Uriel. Recently, I loved him in the show Barry, playing Jim Moss.
What a resume he has, though, Rob.
Rich loved him in The Wire. He has an incredible resume in starring roles in film and TV. Ballers, Burn Notice, The Wire, Nashville, Watchmen, The Alienist, and Ray are just a few. And now our interview with Robert Wisdom.
There he is.
Hey there.
Thanks so much for doing this with us, man.
Yeah, man, it's good to know about it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I can say that Robbie and I sort of going back and watching the show, and there's plenty of episodes we missed. I'm Rich, by the way. That's Rob.
Oh, yeah.
Plenty of episodes that we've missed over the years, and going back and watching them. I mean, your story arc is so great in the series. It's just fantastic.
No, I went back and watched it last night, just because I ain't seen it in I don't know how many years.
Yeah.
But I went back and looked at it, and it was some good shit, man.
Yeah.
Dark.
Yeah.
Again, I continually am surprised by what they got away with on network television.
I swear to God, man.
Like
you couldn't do that these days. No way. They can't even make movies that hard,
Yeah. And this was, and I say this a lot on the podcast, but this thing was butting up against, Dawson's Creek.
I know.
It wasn't like a night of gruesome, macabre murder shows.
Yeah.
It was
It's the CW.
Think of that.
It was maudlin
CW,
teens
man.
and
the
then
softest
this
shit
show.
in the world.
Yeah.
And and they hooked millions of your little kids like y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, it's crazy.
So
let's dive into it.
Let's dive into it. So you just go back to the beginning. You were offered the role without an audition. Were you familiar with the series? Did the producers reveal much about what the character was going to do or what it would become?
It came out of the blue, and basically all I knew was Uriel. So I went in the legit door and looked at the Archangel Uriel, thinking, "Hey, this is what we're going to do," you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew it wasn't going to be gowns and wings and all of that. But you know, I kind of thought that he would be like a redeeming guy.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't talk about it. We didn't even talk about how many episodes. You know, Misha and I came on at the very same time, and we met literally in the car getting picked up, going to set.
Wow.
And neither one of us knew shit. Neither one of us knew. Misha didn't know that he'd be on for the next 15 years or whatever.
Wow.
You know?
Wow.
So it was just basically in the dark, and we shot in Vancouver, and nobody said anything, which I appreciated, you know, because I didn't want to get ahead of myself in the conception. And the conception was so different than what my head was that it was better I didn't know anything. So I just played what was in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any ties to the show previously? Meaning, like, a lot of times when these offers come on, you obviously had a phenomenal resume before you did Supernatural. It's like some legendary stuff. But had you worked with Bob Singer? Did you have anything that connected you to the producers behind the show, Eric Kripke or anybody?
Not at all. Nothing. I mean, our worlds, the only thing I kept thinking of, and we never actually talked about it, you know, I was doing Prison Break, and I said, well, maybe some of them there might be some overlap. But, you know, we never connected up. The exec producers and the writers very rarely came to set.
Right.
Yeah.
So we didn't get to actually meet and chop it. So basically it was just whoever the director was that week and the supervising producer, or usually a writer. And that was it. They were button-lipped. They never really talked about anything that was coming.
Right.
I met the guys, and they filled me in on the backstory and where Uriel might be coming in.
Yeah.
And they were effectively the producers of the show, in my opinion. The two of them. They knew all the nuance and corrected stuff on set. So it was nice to have them around that I could just bounce stuff off of.
Yep.
Yeah, that was kind of it, you know. So there was no real connection, and where they found me, God only knows, you know. But I'm glad they did. You know?
Yeah.
Well, and it's a multifaceted character too. You talked about like looking who Uriel was in a religious context, but really the show is sort of famous for maybe having one foot in a historical context, but then making the rest up. Because Uriel is definitely like, dude, you're a tough mofo in this. Like, as an angel, like, it really takes the whole idea of an angel and turns it on its ear.
That's kind of it. That what I appreciated watching it last night was like, damn, they stepped on this shit.
Yeah.
You know, the idea of an angel, just like, and I don't even remember making the choice to like kind of just whisper the shit to fuck it. You know, it was like so underplayed. Like, motherfucker, we here for business. You know. And it was just, and I was looking at it saying, this shit was effective, man.
Yeah.
Oh, so effective. You're talking about that. Like, I want to stay on that point. Having watched it last night as well, there's that one moment where you just say, it's like Eastwood. You're like Clint Eastwood. He's like, you can't believe you're asking me to do this. You're like, we're not asking. You know,
right.
Dramatic.
We're not asking.
That had to add, aside from an actor having layers to play, that had to make it, I mean, I would assume that would make it fun.
It's funny that you say that, because I never thought I'd say it, but those were the old days. They did 22 fucking episodes a year.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Nobody does that now.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Those writers constructed universes, you know, that can be analyzed for years. I mean, this is like fucking horror history.
Mm-hmm.
And literally, I don't know any show out there that has built something like this over so many seasons with integrity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, Law and Order does their thing, but this is actually creating worlds and dimensions of spiritually sound, kind of metaphysically crazy shit.
Yeah.
And they did it.
Mm-hmm.
So I say that because there was a lot of, just looking at last night, there were 3 stories in that one episode. And when I read the script, I thought, we ain't gonna get enough time for our shit. But all of the directors were well drilled, so they managed to, and I think the guys played a role as well, to kind of let it expand but keep it contained at the same time, so that the merry-go-round could like make it all the way around,
right,
and the whole would be served, and so I just thought it was remarkable to get like in 1 hour, literally 40-something minutes, a big ass story like that in.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like Uriel's death was cheated in the least.
God, no. No.
No, it was great. It was a great moment. Really powerful moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, guys, hold on. We're coming right back. Thanks for listening, everybody. And now back to the episode. And then they call him a specialist. Uriel, they call him a specialist.
Yeah.
What do you think he was a specialist in?
Yeah, we don't really find out, do we, specifically?
We never find out, but I think it's what we were kind of touching on earlier. He went out and did all the dirty work. Mm-hmm. He was a fucking hitman. He basically, Uriel was the dark conscience of God in that sense, that he would kill on behalf of God in the largest sense of moving towards harmony or the good intentions of God. I kind of looked at it like this, and this was kind of a thing that I kept in my head. Uriel wasn't so much about, he didn't buy into the polarity of good and evil. He looked at forces that build up and forces that tear down. So he was the one that went out, and if he had to tear down, the existing forces, and that meant killing, mowing down people, destroying civilizations, he would do that with the knowing that what God was bringing was something that would build up man. And it was that kind of, we talk about the 10,000, 10,000 foot view. Uriel was like the 100,000 mile view of civilization. So he was literally right beside God doing all the shit that was beyond the conscience of man. He was way beyond good and evil. Mm-hmm. He was like into, the whole wheel turning in the biggest way. So that's what worked for me.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would get too religious about the shit, and it would be like,
Yep. 100%. Right. I get that. Did you know before you shot this episode that this would be it? That he dies in this? Did you how much of a leeway did you get before you knew that?
I got that script probably earlier that week, and when he died, I guess I kind of that week when I read it, I saw that this was my out.
Right.
And I have to say, I wasn't happy.
Yeah,
sure.
Because I was digging him,
Yeah.
And I just felt like Mishra's character needed me in the picture as much as as the big story needed me in there.
Yeah.
So it really kind of flipped me that they took Uriel out just when he was getting a purchase.
Exactly. Yeah. Because you find out a lot more about him in this episode, and then they take him away.
Away.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that you get a better perspective on the garrison, and on the fact that she could stick the dagger in me, which is what I mean by when I talk about what they presented, the angelic realm's capabilities was way different than what all of us think. We think all archangels are there for our betterment, and their nature is all refined and good, and they're just all about good. But in fact, their nature is as complex as man. Yeah. And so, the fact that she could make that choice, the fact that I was making the choice to kind of go with Lucifer, which fucks everybody's mind up, because the big story of Lucifer, you got to set that up for people.
Yeah.
Because most people have such a black and white understanding of Satan, Lucifer.
Right.
But they don't understand that in those realms, there was a relationship.
Yes.
Lucifer had a powerful relationship with God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he was in a sense, my model.
Right.
Well, that's what weird. I mean, if you think about it, one of the things that Supernatural did really interestingly, I think, is sort of examine the relationships you're talking about in a way that if you're just a Bible guy, and you're like, well, good and evil is very clear cut. But then they take away all that clarity, right? It's all,
Exactly.
it's all because Lucifer is an angel. So these are angels having inter-angel squabbles and whatnot.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I thought what you said was really interesting. That you said that like Uriel was beyond good and evil, beyond that something as simple as those decisions, like looking at something in a much grander way.
Right.
And then it makes you wonder. I'm sure fans debate this all the time, but in your desire to sort of get the apocalypse going, you wonder. I always wonder what if that had happened? What would that have felt like if you had been able to stir the pot longer? It's one of those things that if in a parallel universe where that character doesn't get iced but continues on, and the war continues. Right. It's just I don't know. Theoretically, it's fascinating to think about.
Well, the thing is that we're always on the head of the pin. We're always there.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing. The fragility of life. Look at the brothers. The brothers were divided, through light and dark in this.
Mm-hmm.
And so every relationship, got magnified so that the imperfections and the fragility was really is right there playing all the time.
Yeah.
Uriel was just there with Castiel. Castiel, if I wanted to kick Castiel's ass, I could have kicked his ass.
Yeah.
There was another thing that I realized that there was I don't like to say fate, but there was almost a fated thing that if these powers were moving against me, it is my turn, my time to move on. And boom, in comes the dagger,
Right.
But I was determined to create that apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
I was, that was the next thing that was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And, we stumbled, we fell, we all, in the fight. But the fact is that I was going to make this happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then she just made a moment in her life happen.
Yeah.
And her fate would have to carry her to the next place, So it was beautifully kind of it was like physics,
Mm-hmm.
It just, everything was in a chain and it moved and poof, there went Uriel.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're all incidental in that way,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not really here for, the idea of the actor comes in wanting permanence, and I want to be a part of this story.
Yeah,
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But the fact is that, no, man, this is a river that keeps moving, and that's what we got to see. It's an incredible show.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that fight for a second. That was an intense fight you had with Misha. The idea of two super beings fighting, and I have to say you're a little better than Misha. Like Misha's really throwing his punches. Do you notice that, Rich? And when Misha gets ready to punch, he's like, he's obvious about it. But you're quite a bit taller than Misha. Do you remember the rehearsal and the blocking of that?
Yeah. The stunt guys came in and. Because of where we had to end up, everything was very specific. And I wanted to make sure that my punches hurt, so we blocked it so that, I would always come across, you could see my back and you could just feel that power.
Right.
I think only through one punch where it shot me from the camera was in front of me on my face. Mm-hmm. And the whole thing was, it was actually deliberate to have Misha look a bit clumsy. A little more because that's Castiel's character.
I see. Right. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
So he was fighting uphill.
Right. Right.
And I was fighting willfully. I knew I could take him out. And I was about to fuck him up. So, they had to create who you're going to root for in this. Mm-hmm. And they did that. And then she comes in with the magic bullet.
Right.
Right. Fucks up my life.
Yeah.
What's interesting about that too is that in this part of the series, obviously in season 13, when Castiel gets in a life or death struggle, everybody knows that Castiel's going to survive. He's a series regular. He's on the poster. At this point in the show, that's not the case. At this point in the show, it was anybody's ball game. And so I think that added stakes to your guys' conflict and fight in a way that is almost better viewed through the lens of history because we know where the story went. But you go back, this could have easily, the writers on a flip of a coin could have had you kill him. You know what I mean? And then that story goes in a different direction.
Exactly. But that story, I think they knew if that story happened, then the brother story gets really fucked up because one of them's going to have to stay on the dark side, and they couldn't allow that.
Right.
They had to have the brothers. This is all in retrospect, we didn't see it coming at the time, and I think they had to take me out just then. Otherwise, the storyline of the two angels would have been too competitive with the main storyline, And the whole show is built on the villain of the week,
right.
Yeah. So, basically you got to get, I don't know how long my arc was. Maybe it was 4 or 5 episodes. I can't remember. But yeah, in the big story, I served my purpose. I like to think that it kind of upped the gravity of the villains. I love the guy who was down on the
Christopher
cross.
Heyerdahl. Yeah.
Oh,
he's so good.
Shit.
Yeah.
He was.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, this episode stands out to me is because of you and Christopher, who are both like swinging for the fences. I mean, like he's phenomenal in everything he does in that episode, and then what you're doing is so intense and fantastic. This is like a feature film in sort of its weight and its execution. I think it's interesting. You mentioned the monster of the week. I feel like season 4, and Robbie and I have been deep diving on this, so we have a bit more recent knowledge of the story than you do, but it was less monster of the week now. Like you were. I'm not necessarily calling you a monster, but you were the guy there for 5 episodes. You were there for a chunk. It wasn't like in out, which I like so much because again, you don't know where the story's going. If I know that at the end of every episode the crime is solved and the bad guy's in jail, then I know that. But in this season, in this series, they let go of that concept and went with a much more complex idea. And one of the things I also love about your character is I think you're the one that brought to the audience and to the boys and the audience as well, the idea of Misha's character had started talking about the weird non-angelic nature of angels, if you will, but you brought it home with like, man, they can be grisly. Like it's a whole different level. Yeah. And they have the power to do it. It was really interesting to see how that played out.
Yeah, that's the thing. It kind of shifted the basic premise into an epic, and it took on more epical kind of dimensions. It when we were growing up, and I don't want to digress, but real quick, but when we were growing up and we learned about the universe, we kind of thought our galaxy was it. The limits was us, and that's what this show did. It started out with like mean, bad people and strange happenings and unnatural shit. And then all of a sudden it just shot it out into the greater universe, galaxy.
Yeah.
So that the viewer is now looking at like, wow, everything is a wow. Right. It's not even like pondering like what's possible. It's like, fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we get, what happens is our sense of the deep fear is just increased by 100-fold because we don't even know how scared we can get by what the dark holds. And that's what they were able to do by just putting a guy up there saying, we're not asking you shit. We're telling you this is what you're going to do, and kind of that the universe has that kind of command over your life scares the fuck out of you,
Yeah.
And they were able to do that with this character. I don't know if that was their intention, but I looked at it like last night, and that's what made me so impressed by the series.
Yeah.
It was huge.
Yeah. No, when they brought in angels, you, Uriel and Castiel, when they brought you in and they opened up this whole new door and like, oh, wow, where are we going now? That's why I think this season 4 is such a great season. And it was already a good show. It went yes and
it was already a good
but they
show.
broke their pattern. I know what you're saying, Rob. Like they just upped the whole thing in terms of how they were gonna.
Yeah, they upped the whole fucking thing in a subtle way. Yeah.
And one of the things I liked also that's also talking about subtle is the costuming between you and Misha. Like Misha's top, I know it's based on the fact that he took over the body of that guy and that's what that guy was wearing. But just from an optic standpoint, your character was buttoned up, snappy, and he looked like he slept in a van. Like his rumpled coat, tie kind of hanging down. It really created an interesting just power dynamic visual between the two of you.
Well, that was basically it. It was kind of it wasn't quite Laurel and Hardy, but it was basically two misfits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That have, and I had to fucking endure. He was like the little brother who was just like, Jesus Christ, Cassidy, you get a fucking grip, man.
Exactly.
and and it's like, put this fucking tie on, right? What did I show you? That? There was a bit of that in the early part of our story that we had that going.
Yeah.
I wish they had. Well, they caught it, I think, and I'll get back to your question, but they caught the look of Uriel. I mean, of Misha when he saw me go, and it was a very confused look, like he was sorry to see me go, but also knew it was necessary. But there was like a personal moment.
Yeah.
And I thought that was great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Misha plays that well. He plays that well. That sort of angel that doesn't understand feelings, but he's having them anyway.
Yeah.
Did you know there was talk of bringing Uriel back in season 15? Apparently, Misha Collins tweeted about it. Did you ever hear anything about that?
You know what? I think that came out of, I don't know if he tweeted about that. Oh no, he led people on.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, because I was shooting Hellstrom in Vancouver. And so I said, well, let me go over, because I knew that they were rapping. So I drove over and just to see him on set.
Oh, cool.
And a lot of the same folks were there. So we hung out and took a picture. And so he posted a picture, but he sort of intimated, and then the fans went nuts.
Oh, funny.
For weeks, on they're coming back and Uriel's coming back. And he never put the fire out,
That's what he does.
Yeah, so I think that's what it came up.
Oh, that's funny.
And by the way, do you remember, quick side note, do you remember where you and I met? Because we met once.
I was looking at your face and tell me.
It was on an airplane, because I came up to you on an airplane and introduced myself, because you knew Michael Cudlitz a little bit, and I knew Mike knew you, and so I saw you on an airplane, and I'm like, I'm going to go say hi. So I introduced myself to you on an airplane, out of the blue.
I remember the Cudlitz moment. Yeah. So must have been coming from Nashville. It was.
You must have been, because I live in Nashville, so I'm from Nashville originally, so I might have been making that flight. So yes, that makes sense.
That was it.
Yeah, but I came over to you, and you were. By the way, for anybody who sees Robert Wisdom on an airplane, he's lovely. You can go up to him and say hello. I went up to him and I'm like, dude, I know you don't know me, but A, I love your work, and B, Michael Cudlitz, and is one of my dear friends, and you were fantastic, and it was a delight to actually get to meet you then, and it's great to actually have a conversation now.
Oh man, I love this. I love how small the world is, man. Wow.
It is a small world. That's the thing, right?
Yeah. Especially our world.
Thank you so much for your time, man. Yeah. It's such a treat to have you here.
Thank you so much.
This has been a great pleasure, man. Thanks, fellas. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, buddy.
Take care.
Okay.
We'll see you soon.
This is Jensen, stopping in to say hey and let you know that we've got to take a quick break. I'm about to pop. Thanks for supporting Supernatural then and now. And now, back to the show.
Wow. Just wow.
Just wow.
I loved that interview, man.
What a great guy.
Intelligent, funny, fun, thoughtful human being. And what an interesting analysis of the character.
It's always fun when the people we're interviewing go back and watch the episode and relive it and go, oh, wow, that was really great. I mean, it's kind of like what you and I are doing with the show itself, going, oh, wow, this really holds up. That was fun to get his fresh analysis of the part and the journey his character took.
He had such an interesting insight to it.
Yeah.
I mean, like you say, it obviously triggered memories from his days of shooting it, or just it made him think about it, and it was really fascinating.
Yeah. Well, let's get into the mythology, shall we?
Mythology.
Uriel, whose name means fire of God or light of God, is the angel of thunder, terror, and earthquakes, but also wisdom, played by Robert Wisdom. He's one of the archangels usually associated with the apocalypse. He's often identified as a cherub and an angel of repentance, and is depicted as standing at the gates of Eden with a fiery sword. Uriel was also the angel who discussed the fates of the leaders of the fallen angels, among them Azazel. According to the revelation of Esdras, he is among the angels who will rule at the end of the world.
The English poet John Milton in Paradise Lost described Uriel as regent of the sun and the sharpest sighted spirit of all in heaven. So had good eyesight. There we go.
There you go. Really good eyesight. He's also the angel of September, the typical premiere month for a new season of Supernatural. Hey.
Also the month of Rob Benedict's birthday.
Also the month of Richard Spate's birthday.
Hey.
And it's time for fun facts. The title of this episode comes from the expression, how many angels can dance on the head of a pin? A metaphor for an exercise in futility.
Never heard of that.
I never heard that either. Robert also talked about head of a pin in the interview, and it made me think, when he was talking about universes, actually, it made me think the head of a pin, like there could be an entire universe in the head of a pin. That's what it made me think.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you're talking
That's
about.
what made me think, head of a pin.
Got it. Makes sense.
Okay, good.
In Germany, the episode is called Diabolic Angel. In Hungary, it is called Interrogation.
Interesting. That's very, I didn't know they changed the name of episode titles.
And in Japan, it's called The Happy Fun Boat That Kills You.
No, it's not. But that's interesting. I didn't know they did that for episode titles.
I didn't either.
Like my first episode, Monster at the End of the Book, in Germany, is called Asshole.
It's called Forecasting.
This episode is the first time Dean calls Castiel Cass to his face. I noticed that.
And I don't think Castiel's ever referred to as Cass again, ever, on screen or off, ever.
Yeah, no one ever said it again. No.
Actors or fans alike.
After this, it was just Steel.
TL.
Steel.
This episode contains the first use of an angel blade, which in later episodes and seasons becomes the weapon of choice against both angels and demons.
Interesting.
And it's easy to hide up your sleeve.
Yeah, apparently. A lot of firsts in this episode. Also, this is the first time an angel dies in the show. And it must have been the first time they've done that like black outline of angel wings.
Oh, yeah, the burn mark.
Yeah. And then you died 8 more times as an angel, didn't you?
I just would show up and go, hey guys, what are we? Ah! Originally, Castiel was going to die in this episode, but due to his popularity, the writers kept him alive.
No shit. Well, there you go. I didn't know that.
See, it pays to be popular, or so I've read.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
See, and that's really interesting to note, because like this was kind of a first. I think I've said this before about Supernatural. Like they were actually listening to what fans' reactions were and making decisions based on it.
I know, but it kind of paints a dismal picture for our turn on the show. Like, what are the fans saying? Keep them alive? No, kind of crickets over here, so go ahead and off them.
That's not true. But actually, it's same for us. I mean, you know, it did matter if people liked you or not, if you were well received or not, and it just can't be said about TV shows before this. It didn't matter what you thought; they were going to write whatever they wrote. But Supernatural listened, and to me, that's one of the reasons it lasted for 15 seasons.
Agreed. What a great podcast episode.
Absolutely. And great episode of Supernatural. And I feel almost like a turning point, you know, like we talked about in our interview. It's, you know, we're now seeing angels in a different light. And we know that the world is much bigger than we thought it was.
Yeah.
It's bigger than just the head of a pin. There you have it.
There you go. It all comes full circle. Your mushrooms have brought you to a junction of understanding and enlightenment.
Yes. And just so everyone knows, I'm not really on mushrooms. This is just a joke Richard likes to play.
That's what we're doing. Okay, cool. We're not on mushrooms. Probably sober. There. Are you convinced? Are you happy?
Well, thanks, Rich. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming and doing this.
Thanks for inviting me, buddy. This is great. I love what you've done with the place.
Thank you. Well, I'm excited for the next one, and I know you are too, so we will see you then. This episode of Supernatural features Jared Padalecki as Sam Winchester, Jensen Ackles as Dean Winchester, and Misha Collins as Castiel Johnson.
Guest stars included a bunch of fabulous people, including Robert Wisdom, Genevieve Padalecki, Julie McNiven, and Christopher Heyerdahl.
On the Head of a Pin was written by Ben Edlund and directed by Mike Roll.
Editing by Tom McQuaid, music by Christopher Lennertz.
Executive produced by Eric Kripke and Robert Singer.
This episode originally aired on March 19th, 2009.
It's so great. We didn't mention that Ben Edlund wrote this. That's
I didn't even put it together till right now, honestly.
Yeah.
Of course he did.
Yeah, so good. This episode of Supernatural Then and Now was hosted and executive produced by Richard Spade Jr. and Rob Benedict.
Produced by Stephen Hine, written by Stephen Hine and Haida Holscher.
And edited and associate produced by Trey Booty. Music provided by Tim Wynn.
The episode was recorded with the help of Sonic Fuel Studios.
This podcast is from Story Mill Media.
Follow the podcast on Instagram and TikTok at SPN Then and Now.
Become a member of the podcast at patreon.com/SPN Then and Now or on Apple. Castiel walks into already take two. Uriel, whose name means fire of God.
Muriel?
No, Uriel.
Wait a minute. What's the month of thunder? Terror and earthquakes.
The angel's the month of thunder.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Is it like he's the angel of the month? Like the flavor of the month when you go to Starbucks?
Or the playmate of the month.
I don't know what you're referring to, Rob. It sounds gross and inappropriate.
What is it, Steve?
Anyway,
is that
so Rob got canceled. Our new host for the rest of the series.
Great episode. Perfect beard. That I'm almost looking at it through a different lens that I normally see it through. I don't know. It still sounds like I'm on mushrooms when I say that, but
it sounds like you're on mushrooms when you say that. But you know what? People on mushrooms are people too.
Yeah, they are.
Is
true.
what I've always said. And by the way, ironically, Uriel is the angel of thunder, and you are a frequent guest at the Thunder from Down.
Okay.
That was a good one, Rob.
Story Mill Media.